Are you in debt? If so, don't worry. Virtually everyone is in some form of debt. Whether it be paying for a house, new car, school loans, or even just your credit card. Most times it's manageable, ranging from $100 to $1 million. But what about on a global scale? Countries buy and sell things all the time. What does their debt look like? World public debts grow exponentially every minute. At the time of this video, the total world debt is closing in on $300 trillion, literally going up by the millions every second. But what countries add to this number the most? To best understand this, we look at a figure that indicates debt as a percentage of GDP. So, what exactly is GDP? It stands for Gross Domestic Product, and it serves as an economic indicator of the overall economic health of a country. Debt to GDP provides us insight into how well the indebted can handle their debt. Countries that have a lot of total debt can still have strong economies to deal with it. That's why we'll use this ratio when looking at our list. Before we begin, be sure to hit the like button to help us out. Now, here are 10 of the most indebted countries in the world. Number 10. France. Kicking off our list is the home to the City of Lights. That's right, France. Their national debt is rather outstanding, exceeding just over $2.126 trillion, which would cement France as one of the most in-debt European countries on the map. To make matters more pressing, that ratio has been growing steadily and has been attributed to high levels of government spending. It's more than likely that the debt will continue to increase in the following years, thanks to the recent global pandemic and upcoming tax cuts. Currently, it's estimated that around 50% of France's public debt is held by non-resident investors. Then, secondly, by other French investors, as well as French insurance companies. So, what does that say for France's GDP? With a reasonably decent economic structure, they come in at around 116% debt to GDP. Number 9. Singapore. Singapore has one of the most developed economies in the world, but you will continue to find them in lists of the most indebted countries on the planet. The gross national debt of Singapore comes in at a staggering $2.3 trillion, which is rather high for a country with fewer than 6 million people. Although that may seem pretty scary, Singapore is actually thriving and has a very healthy financial standing. So, how exactly does a country with $2.3 trillion of debt considered financially healthy? To better understand this, instead of looking at the gross national debt, we need to look at the figure that represents the country's net national debt. It's been found that Singapore has absolutely no net national debt, meaning the government essentially owns more assets than it has debts. Since the local government doesn't run a budget deficit to run the country, all borrowed money ends up being invested into specific infrastructure projects. Therefore, the debt that the local government holds is matched by assets of greater, or at the very least equal value. When calculating the GDP of a country, it's important to note that there are other factors to take into consideration, which will also show insight into the state of public debt. Singapore takes the number 9 spot on our list, with a national debt to GDP ratio of 130%. Number 8. United States of America. The United States of America is known for having one of the world's strongest economies. Yet that doesn't change the fact that you'll always find the good old US of A included in lists ranking countries by debt. With a population of over 331 million, the current debt outstanding by the states is around $29 trillion. To break that number down a bit more, the majority of the debt, or exactly 78% of it, is fully owned by the public. The rest of that number is strictly intragovernmental. Since World War II, the debt to GDP ratio reached the highest it's ever been until after the 9/11 attacks. This leads the American government to increase its military spending, inadvertently creating a high budget deficit. Followed by the Great Recession and the global pandemic, which did their fair share of damage to the already astronomical number. The debt continues to increase as the pandemic rages in America, which has indefinitely caused the amount of public debt to increase. In September 2021, the country's annual inflation rate came up to a one-year high of 5.4%, indicating just how much debt the government has taken on since the start of the global pandemic. Even with a debt to GDP ratio of around 133%, America continues to be the most powerful economy in the world. Number 7. Barbados. When you break down the national debt by country, Barbados doesn't really seem like they should be on the list. On the surface, they don't appear to be indebted too awfully much, coming in at just under $7 billion. As it would turn out, that amount represents a much higher percentage of the country's actual GDP. Taking their small population of just over 287,000 into consideration, that number does seem a bit larger. Barbados is a country that primarily relies on tourism. With the travel bans that were recently put into place, that trade has nearly been non-existent due to the pandemic. Experts do believe that there is some hope that the public debt of Barbados will soon begin to decrease as traveling re-regulates itself. As of 2021, the debt-to-GDP ratio of this beautiful tourist-driven paradise comes in at 143%. Number 6. Italy. If we were ranking European sovereign debts by country, Italy would be number 2 on the list, right behind Greece. It's estimated that the total debt of the boot-shaped country will reach well over $3.5 billion by 2026. This would make it the highest amount of debt that Italy has seen since World War II. The economic growth of the country can't keep up enough to help pull the country out of its financial crisis. All of their troubles began during the oil crisis and the inflation that took place during the 1980s. The national debt has been increasing ever since, and it's now well over $3 trillion. Most of the debt is held by banks, investment funds, and the Bank of Italy, with only an estimated $100 billion owned by Italian households. Currently, their debt-to-GDP ratio is at a whopping 157%. We're now halfway through our video. If you're still with us, comment broke countries down below. Number 5. Eritrea. Eritrea is considered to be one of the most impoverished countries, with more than 50% of the total population living below the national poverty line. With 3.5 million people living here, the amount of poverty-stricken families is quite high. Even with that statistic in place, they still find themselves at number 5 on our list. Due to their poor economy, which can be attributed to the conflict with Ethiopia, their GDP rate had dropped. The fiscal deficits and inflation have caused an alarming amount of national debt, which is estimated to be near the $4 billion mark. With the national debt-to-GDP ratio of nearly 175%, Eritrea is one of the most indebted countries in the entire world. Number 4. Greece. Greece sits comfortably at the 4th spot on our list, but they weren't always this high up on the chart. Their modern financial fall all started when they joined the Eurozone, which is odd, considering they didn't even meet the requirements or criteria to join. Greece actually submitted fake reports in regards to its budget deficit, which they later confessed to, but the damage was done. As a result, they faced a huge financial crisis in 2008, crippling them, and their economic situation has not yet improved. The European Union was concerned about the implications that this would have on the Eurozone, so they opted to loan Greece approximately $350 billion, which means they now owe a significant amount of money to investors, EU banks, governments, etc. As of July 2021, their debt is approximately $450 billion. Greece is also the first country on this list to have a debt-to-GDP ratio of over 200, coming in at 210%. Number 3. Sudan. Sudan takes the 3rd spot on our list of the countries with the most debt. Their GDP story starts back in the 1970s, when several banks loaned them huge amounts of money, as the country was on its way to becoming a major exporter of oil. Once they reached the 1980s, Sudan was no longer able to make their payments, and to make matters worse, the IMF stepped in with more loans, which just exacerbated Sudan's already terrible financial situation. The country defaulted in 1984, and the debt is still in place to this day. In 2005, South Sudan seceded, leaving the Republic of Sudan with a ton of debt, and not so much oil. Their national debt sits at $56.2 billion, most of it being money owed to the IMF, the World Bank, and Western governments. While their debt to GDP is around 212%, they've been approved for debt relief by the IMF, and will likely clear up around 90% of its total debt in the near future. With a payout like that, it's likely to see Sudan fall off multiple lists covering the most indebted countries. Number 2. Japan. It may not be a big surprise to find that Japan is the country with the 2nd highest national debt to GDP ratio. In fact, their national debt is actually more than 2.5 times higher than their GDP. It's estimated that their current debt is just over $8.6 trillion, with some of it being owned domestically. The majority is held solely by the Bank of Japan. Throughout history, Japan hasn't had a very good relationship with financial debt. After World War II, the country well exceeded its GDP by more than 2 times. This was the direct result of sinking money into the costly war with government bonds. Japan's government attempted to deal with the debt by introducing war indemnity taxes and printing out more money, which did lead to small improvements. However, by the end of the 1990s, Japan fell into what is known as Japan's lost decade, and it all came to an end. Suffering from the stock market crash and the financial crisis, the country is yet to rebound, thus donning a debt to GDP of almost 260%, and not much on the horizon in the form of any type of resolve. You're nearly at the end of our video. We're on a mission to explore all of Earth's amazing destinations. Make sure you're subscribed, that way you'll always be notified of our latest videos. Number 1. Venezuela. Let's just get right down to our number 1, and why Venezuela takes the cake when it comes down to the most indebted countries in the world. With a staggering debt to GDP of 304%, they come in nearly 45% higher than Japan. With a country debt of $160 billion, it's easy to see how Venezuela has the number 1 spot when it comes to the countries with the highest debt. Like we've mentioned in some of our other videos, Venezuela's socialistic economy recently collapsed due to multiple factors, and its financial health took a tumble with the economy. The US sanctions put in place by the Trump government would only make matters worse. With their number 1 export being oil, their debt is more than 7 times greater than the amount of money they make from exporting and producing it. It's like owing someone $700 every month, but you can only afford payments of $70. While their debt continues to grow wildly out of control, not much has been done to slow down the financial hemorrhaging of Venezuela. Most of their debt is owned by international bondholders, with China and Russia owning the second largest part. Hey, thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new while watching it. If you want to see other videos like this one, or if you even want to suggest a video idea of your own, or just have something to say, let us know in the comments section below. Want more top 10 lists on different places all around the globe? Check out our countries playlist for more videos like this one.